we won't know that until mid-April. When will the canola be harvested? But this year we have an adequate stand. We have leaching here because of our copious amounts of rainfall. Welcome to our YouTube. Been a few weeks since we've been on here. January 21st. Winter has set in on Kentucky. Really cold out here today. Probably in the low teens. We're out here in the canola field. Going to do a crop update for you since it's been a few weeks since you've been on the farm. This is our very first crop of canola. I actually don't know much agronomy about it. I've just learned a little bit from what I've read, and just a few of the farmers that have had some experience with it has shared some of their insights on it. Actually, the canola looks pretty good. This canola field here was planted by one of my neighbors, Colin Cooper. He has his planter set up and actually drilled this canola field for us so we could get a look at it without investing a whole lot of money in it. This is drilled on 15-inch rows, and we no-tilled it into a soybean field. So we're going to double crop this canola. It will, after the canola is harvested in June, it will go back into soybeans. And we used a product, herbicide called Command, to prevent the weeds from coming into the canola. As you can see, we have a little bit of fall annuals emerging. I see bluegrass scattered around, a little bit of henbit, but I don't think it's enough to affect our yield much. But we'll talk about the little canola plant. I think one of the challenges that I hear with canola is when it's planted into residue in a no-till situation like this, you see there's a little stem before the plant goes to branching, and that stem can be vulnerable to frost. And the problem with planting it into residue is the stem wants to elongate, and when that elongation happens, when the stem gets long, the leaves aren't able to protect the stem as well, and this part frosts out and the plant can die. It looks like with this canola, Colin was using his row cleaners and parted the residue out really good and left a pretty good and clean seed bed. And as you can see, the canola is covering its stem pretty good. You can see it, the stem's virtually right on the ground. We didn't get a lot of elongation from the stem. So a guy asked me at the gas station last night, what about that canola? Is it going to die with that cold weather? And I think Colin did a good job with his seeding, and I think we're going to be safe. So they say in the northern territories that the snow covers the canola, keeps it from frosting out. Well, we're not going to get any snow, definitely. We're just going to get cold weather, but hopefully Colin and his good planning job is going to save us here, and we'll make a good canola crop out of this. So the question is, when will the canola be harvested? I really don't know. I've never had a canola crop, but I think it'll be the last week of May, first week of June. So the agronomists say that we're generally a week to 10 days ahead of a wheat crop here in Kentucky. And I would think if you put a mean average on our wheat crop, June 9th, June 10th would be normally when our wheat comes off. Last year we were in May with wheat, but that's an anomaly. But I expect the canola to come off that very last week of May, the very first week of June. Hopefully a few days before our wheat, that would be perfect. It would be easy to add to our rotation if we could get a canola crop in before our wheat was ready to harvest. It would work out perfect. We could get the combines on the canola, get the canola out, and then the wheat be ready, and that would be perfect. It would fit right in with what we want to do on the farm. We'd be getting our beans planted a little earlier than we do behind the wheat, and once a canola crop is removed, you don't have the residue to challenge your new beans, or if you wanted to go back into corn. Here in Kentucky, even in June, we could plant corn and get a full corn crop off in June, if that's the route you went. the problem with a wheat field is you have all that straw residue left over after a wheat crop, and it's a little bit difficult to get a bean crop established in that wheat. It always, we can raise really good double crop beans here, but that's always a challenge with the bean crop, especially if it's dry here, is getting the beans established really good into that wheat straw. So looking forward to how this works in a double crop situation, and it's a learning process. So don't expect to make money on it the first year, more than likely. Just going to be a learning experience, and hopefully we'll learn from it and continue the practice and grow into the acres as we gain more experience in it, and hopefully it becomes a profitable crop for us in the future. So excited to see this, how it turns out. Talking to the agronomist, fungicide is a must here. We receive so much rainfall, and I think it's pretty susceptible to disease, and so we'll treat it like we do wheat here, where canola is a nitrogen-loving crop. We'll split apply our nitrogen on it this spring, put 2 different shots of nitrogen on it. We have leaching here because of our copious amounts of rainfall. So we'll split apply the nitrogen, and we'll also be out here aggressively treating any disease we see. So at least 3 more passes with a sprayer will happen on this field before it goes to harvest. But so far, so good. As you can see, it looks like it's really well established. Looks about to be the perfect size, and Colin got a great stand out here. We're out here in the wheat field now. This was a cornfield last fall, harvested corn, and then we no-tilled the wheat back in it. This wheat will be harvested in June. We're in dormancy right now. As you can tell, we got a really good stand on this wheat. It was, when it was seeded, we had plenty of moisture, and then we had a lot of warm weather coming into the winter. And because of that, our wheat almost got too big. Generally, here in Kentucky, 30 or 40 units of nitrogen is enough. We like to apply just a little bit more than that because in our no-till situation, sometimes the wheat struggles to get established, and we need tillering out of it because we're going to inevitably lay too much seed on the top of the ground. Because of the thick plumage that we plant into, we need the wheat to actively tiller, and so we'll over-apply or apply a little bit too much nitrogen, more than probably the recommended rate on like a conventional program. And in this year, because of our adequate moisture and our really warm temperatures, an oversupply of nitrogen was probably a bad decision. It just got our wheat. I don't think we got quite big enough to damage it, but we did need 2 more weeks of warm weather the way it was actively growing. So the wheat is really good looking right now. I feel like the crop can be really good, and you can see it kind of has a black look to it. It's just cold, and we won't normally get frosted out here due to cold weather. Most of the time, our cold weather doesn't last long enough where we lose a lot or very much at all to winter freeze. So it can be an issue. I've seen it happen a few times where it gets so cold for an extended period of time, you start to lose a few plants to winter kill. I don't think we're in danger of that yet. And even if we did, we've probably got more tillers than we can carry to harvest anyway. So wheat looks good. I'm excited about this year's wheat crop. Still got a long way to go, so a lot of things can happen, but a good start. Wheat is a nitrogen-loving crop. Of course, we'll spread some dry potash and DAP, which is our phosphorus. Generally, 30 units of nitrogen is a good recommended rate for a wheat crop here. I like to use 60 units of nitrogen because of our no-till situation. And then we'll split apply the nitrogen in the spring, and generally I shoot between 125 and 135 units of nitrogen, depending on the amount of rainfall we are getting. I'll start with about half of that nitrogen on the first shot in mid-February, and then we'll wait, until sometime in April and apply the second shot. And depending on how much rainfall we've had, and I'll just kind of eyeball it. I mean, the scientific way would be to test the wheat and see what's nitrogen is available, and then apply that amount. I kind of look at it, and if I feel like it's yellow and it needs a little more, maybe I'll kick an extra 10 units on it. If not, if I feel like we've just had a normal amount of rainfall and we haven't lost a lot to leaching, and the wheat is actively growing and looks pretty, I'll knock that extra 10 units off of it. And but I'm looking to get to the 125, 135 unit range for a full wheat crop. And then head scab is a problem here. We get so much rain at bloom and wheat that most of the time, if not every year, a head scab fungicide like Maravis Ace will pay for an application. That's a very expensive fungicide, but vomitoxin is a real possibility here with our wet bloom periods. Most of the time, wheat will bloom, and that's when it's beginning to form its grain. We're too warm and wet here not to have to worry about a head disease coming into it. The wheat crop, the way I've been growing wheat here has been the same for, I don't know, we've probably been split applying nitrogen here, gosh, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 years now. I haven't changed the practices much. As the new fungicides are updated, we usually move to the newest fungicide technology, but other than that, our practices have remained the same for a long period of time. We do understand, I think, a little bit better now how to manage nitrogen in the wheat and what micronutrients to apply into the field to get our maximum yield. But our practices haven't varied much. We're just we look to no-till it and then double crop it after the wheat comes off. So it'll come back into soybeans after this wheat is removed in June. We're still a long way out from wheat harvest here, and a lot of things can happen to this wheat. I've seen years where the wheat gets growing, looks fantastic, and then we get a late frost event, and it either damages or kills the wheat. We won't know that until mid-April to see if we're past that threat or not. Sometimes our wheat can not get a great establishment of a stand, and that's always when your bushels can be limited, when you don't get an adequate stand. But this year we have an adequate stand. It tillered fantastic. Last year, I think one of our problems, and we wound up with a decent wheat harvest last year, but the wheat was late getting established. We didn't have as many tillers as we probably needed to have going into the spring period when it's really beginning to grow off good. And because of that, your main stem heads will make up most of your yield, but your tillers make a significant portion of it. And if you don't have enough tillers, that's just less grain to harvest at the end. For this year, we have plenty of tillers, plus our main stem or our main plants are very healthy. We could have I'll say this, we have fantastic potential if everything else lines up for it. Thanks for watching our crop update. Like, share, and subscribe.